Hey guys, PJ back again with another CD showcase installment. I said at the beginning of these that I might do them by label, and that's what I'm doing this video. Now, as for some background on the releases you're going to see in this video, a few weeks ago I was going through all my CDs. I noticed I didn't have any CDs from Willowtip Records, which is a label that caters primarily to death metal and grindcore, and I decided to fix that. So I ordered this mystery box from them. It's $25 plus a little bit of shipping, and basically what they say is they'll send you at least 10 CDs and maybe like shirts or merch or anything. They ended up sending me 13 CDs, which is pretty awesome. I didn't get anything as far as like merch or like promo material, but 13 CDs is definitely worth it for the $25 I paid. Now, I was originally going to do this as sort of an unboxing video, so it would be a surprise to me and a surprise to you guys what CDs I actually got out of it. However, I ended up not knowing many of the bands, so I couldn't really provide any real insightful commentary on the releases I got, and the bands I did know, I hadn't heard the albums I got from them, so I kind of scrapped all that footage, decided to just do this after I'd listened to all 13 of these albums. Alright, to kick things off, we have some death grind. This is Afgrund with Vid Helvets Grindar. And it's pretty interesting. I've heard these guys get a lot of comparisons to Nasum. I don't personally see that too much, but it's pretty decent stuff worth checking out. And I've only listened to it once, and this was like one of the first ones I listened to, so I can't really remember any standout tracks for you. But Afgrund is what they're called, and they're probably worth your time if you're into death grind. Next up, we have some melodic death metal in the form of the band As Eden Burns with their album The Great Celestial Delusion. The type of melodic death metal that these guys play is along the lines of like early Black Dahlia Murder, sort of like At the Gates worship type stuff. It sounds a little bit like what melodic metalcore bands were doing at the time, but a little bit more to the death metal side. So if you like early Black Dahlia Murder, like Unhallowed, you should check out As Eden Burns. You'll probably enjoy them. Alright, next up was one of the few bands I actually knew and had heard the album from when I originally got the mystery package. And that is the band Blood Freak with Mind Scraper. Now, this is some weird stuff, as you can probably infer by the cover. It is death grind. It's pretty awesome at that. I'll take the booklet out because there is some really insane art in this thing. You have pretty much illustrations for every song. Just weird stuff like that. Have just cool foldouts and such. I really like all the work that went into this booklet, and it really makes it look kind of cartoony and very 80s inspired, and the band kind of plays into that whole 80s vibe by being very raw, and they're very proud that they don't use any effects on like their vocals or anything to make it sound modulated or better or anything. So yeah, check out Blood Freak. They're actually pretty interesting. Alright, so next up is one of the oldest CDs Willowtip sent me, and that is the band Commit Suicide with their album Human Larvae Earthly Cleansing. Now, this stuff, like, by the cover, you can probably tell that it's another death grind album, and it definitely looks like it's inspired by Carcass, at least from the cover. I didn't get too many Carcass vibes off the music when I listened to it. This is their first album, I believe, and I know they have a second one, which it has a lot better reviews than this one did, but it's a pretty decent band. The name is leaves a bit to be desired, but I mean, if you want to be edgy, like, just tell people your favorite band is Commit Suicide, and they'll know not to mess with you, man. They won't mess with you. Alright, the next two CDs are from the same band, and that is a band called Crowpath. I'm not too familiar with the backstory on these guys. The first album here is called Red on Chrome by Crowpath, and the second one is called One with Filth. also by Crowpath. These guys are very chaotic in style, and they're labeled as mathcore in certain places and like progressive grind in others. I didn't really hear too much mathcore in their sound, but it's very chaotic stuff, and I wasn't super into it, but I'll probably give these records another spin. This is their first album, Red on Chrome is, and One with Filth is actually their third album. There's an album in the middle that I haven't heard, and I might listen to it at some point. Alright, next two are also by the same band. That band is Defeatist. The first release is called Sharp Blade Sinks Deep into Dull Minds. Looks like this. These guys are a grindcore band. They play just a very blasty style of grindcore, something I'm not too into, and the vocals are a little shrieky and weren't really my thing. But overall, I started liking these guys more the more I listened to them. This one right here is actually a collection of 3 EPs, which they were vinyl only, I think, before this compilation came out. And the second CD by them is their first album called Sixth Extinction, which came after all those EPs. It's kind of more of the same of what you heard on the EPs. I kind of need to give these guys another spin to really get into them. So for right now, I can't really recommend these guys, but if you like really blasty grind with like really shrieked vocals, you might dig these guys. Alright, next up is another grindcore band. These guys are called Infanticide, and this is their latest album actually. It's called Misconception of Hope. I really enjoyed this. It reminds me a lot of like Rotten Sound, Nasum, and like Wormrot, which are 3 grindcore bands that I'm really into, and this is definitely really up my alley. I really enjoyed this type of grind, and if you like grindcore or the bands I mentioned, definitely check out Infanticide. They don't get a lot of love on the internet. I haven't really seen them posted many places, so definitely check these guys out. They were definitely a good find for this mystery box. Right, next up is a band, I'm not sure how you pronounce their name. I think they're called Calibas or Calibase or Calabas or something along that line. And it's an EP called Enthusiastic Corruption of the Common Good. Looks like this. Front cover looks like Ronald Reagan with little demon wings. That's pretty cool. Little social commentary for you there. Yeah. This was pretty good, actually. I dug it. It's another Death Grind, surprise, surprise, Death Grind EP. Pretty good. If you haven't heard this, it's definitely worth a listen. It's only about 15 minutes long, but it's definitely a quality release. Next up, we've got another grindcore record. These guys are actually pretty famous in the grindcore scene, so I'm not going to talk about the band too much, but this is Phobia with Cruel. These guys are very punk-inspired as well. Grindcore did stem from a fusion of like crust punk and extreme metal, so that's understandable. They sing about being punks a lot, and they have one song called Loud, Proud, and Punk as Fuck, which has a sample from Heavy Metal Parking Lot. I forget the quote exactly, but I believe it's along the lines of metal rules, all that punk shit sucks, it belongs on fucking Mars, man. But anyways, if you've seen that like 15-minute documentary, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's actually added really well to the song. Then one song just made me crack up on this album. There's this 9-second song called Grind on this, where the lyrics is just grind, just like for 9 seconds, and I thought that was pretty funny, kind of the definition of what grindcore really is, with like the whole micro song type thing. But anyways, check out Phobia with Cruel if you don't know this band somehow and you're into grind. Alright, next up, second to last, is another band. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce their name. They're called, I believe, Sulaco, but that's probably wrong because that sounds like a stupid name. But anyways, this album's called Tearing Through the Roots, and it's, I think, death grind. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. There's 2 unlisted songs on this actually. It only has up through 11 listed, but I did a little research. 12 and 13 are actually their songs from the split they did with Soylent Green before this album came out, which, pretty good. They're pretty good songs. Alright, so anyways, that's second to last CD. Now, this last one was one that I put on just today, actually, and I really enjoyed this. These guys are called Terminal Function, and the album is called Measuring the Abstract. Now, if you're not too familiar with these guys play a very, like, groovy, progressive death metal sound, kind of like Meshuggah meets Cynic in certain ways, and it definitely kind of reminded me of Between the Buried and Me as well in certain parts, but it's definitely really rooted in, like, groove and death metal, and I really, really like this album. I'm probably going to spin it really soon again. So yeah, if you haven't heard of Terminal Function, check this album out. It sounds like they released a second album last year after like 7 years of not being active or something like that. So I'm going to check that out as well. And yeah, check out Terminal Function. So yeah, that's it for all the CDs I got through Willowtip. So if you're interested in getting like a mystery box similar to this one, I'll leave you a link to Willowtip's Bandcamp. You can pretty easily find the order link for one of these. If you go to like any older release that they have on that page, they usually have a link to buy it. If you've heard any of these albums, let me know what ones were your favorites. If you haven't heard any of these albums, what ones looked interesting to you? And what's your favorite Willowtip release in general? So anyways, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys later, and until next time, keep it metal.